Welcome to another episode, or I guess our first episode of Broker Blueprint. Today we are just going to be sitting here, my co-host and I, Nick Giganti.
What's going on?
Yeah, Nick, how you doing today?
Doing great. It's a good day. Good day. A lot of calls, a lot of good calls, a lot of deals out there right now.
Who are you calling right now?
Who am I calling right now? Just a lot of people that have been in my database, people that I've been working with. I just feel like, to get into it a little bit, I mean, I would say since the turn of the year, I have had more conversations, and there's been, what I'm seeing is a lot more activity than probably the last 6 months of last year.
Wow.
I just think with it was first the election, people kind of just not really making any decisions, not really wanting to transact or do anything because they wanted to see what was the result of the election. And then once we got past the election, then it was the holidays, and then it was, Thanksgiving and that the holiday slowdown. And then turn of the year, there's really nothing else for people to delay.
Yeah, there's no more excuses.
There's no more excuses.
Yeah.
So, we could kind of talk about what we think with Trump in office, right?
Totally. That's a big topic.
Yeah, big topic. Yeah. Obviously, roughly just a little bit over 50% wanted him in.
Just enough.
Yeah. And personally speaking, on a business side of things, I think Trump is going to help the real estate market. The guy's a real estate. His background is real estate. I think we've had a lot of stagnation. When you look at the numbers, sales volume we're at 1991 levels for sales volume in the country. So just stagnation.
I've definitely felt that. I didn't know that was the exact, kind of, I guess, replica of the year that we've kind of had where it's just been that slow. But I know you always worked your database well. And the fact that you're saying that it's definitely been a lot more conversations, people coming out of the woodwork, people kind of just asking questions is a good thing, raising their hand.
Yeah.
What are kind of the main questions that you're getting right now, or like main topics you're talking about with those people in your database?
Yeah, it's more conversations where they're reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, why don't you take a look at these properties? I want to sell these properties, or can you give me a price on these properties?" I feel like the last 2 years of just straight stagnation.
Yeah.
And it kind of differs from the '08 collapse because we saw asset pricing. I wasn't in real estate at that time, but asset, houses values got cut in half or 30%.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different market because the asset value is if not higher, you know?
And back then, I think a big issue was people not being qualified for those properties, and the residential market was like the main, it got crushed.
Yeah, it got crushed.
And then this time around, it was COVID. COVID sent everyone home. So office, commercial, that's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
It got crushed. And now it's like, all right, I think what you said earlier, like, man, we just kind of know what's going on. There's no more excuses. And people have been trying to maybe get a number for properties. Those people that are calling you saying, what is this worth? Maybe they've been trying to get a number from, off-market investors, whatever they're doing. And now they're realizing it's kind of they're not going to get what they could get back in 2019, maybe 2021. That was a great age for sellers.
Yeah, because the interest rates were 3%.
Exactly.
I always make the analogy. The interest rates were like a bodybuilder that uses steroids. And now the economy is off the steroids.
Yeah. Who you are.
There's no more 3% free money that people were just speculating left and right, throwing around money. It was great to be a broker. It was great to be a deal maker. But, and it's not like the interest rates, we're at 7, someone's getting a mortgage rate right now, we're at 7%.
Yep.
Historically speaking, that is relatively low. But what happened was it was shock to the system.
Yep.
3% interest rates in the matter of 4 or 5 months in 2022, boom, it just shot up.
Yep.
So it was this, it takes a while for the economy and the consumer to process that. And I think at this point, again, 2 years of real estate investors really, I can't tell you how many conversations, hey, do you like this deal? I'm not buying anything. I'm holding off. I don't know where the rental rates are going. I don't know where the construction pricing is going. And it's still somewhat like that, but it is stabilizing. You know, like in Philly, we talked about the absorption of the units.
Yeah.
Philly is putting out more units than it has ever in its history.
Oh, yeah. In certain zip codes alone, like Fishtown, where we're close by right now, like, 13,000 units. You know, all residential leasing, you know.
Yep.
It really does. It softens the rents in the short term, but it also strengthens the rents in the long term. And I think right now I saw a stat by the Philadelphia Inquirer that we were rising rapidly in one of the most expensive rental cities to live in America.
Yeah.
So it's at first it was great, you know. Oh, hey, I can get 2 free months rent over here because it's a brand new building. They're trying to soak up as many people as they can. Now they're getting soaked up, they're getting absorbed, and I think there's some actual numbers you could look into where it's almost like for every 10 units, 8 are getting taken right away, you know? Yep. So there's a couple that are maybe dwindling, a couple buildings that
still a surplus. Correct. Still needs to be absorbed.
Just a little bit, but it's you know, we have so many things coming our way with obviously, you know, we're having a great run in Philly sports. We have the FIFA World Cup coming on. We have our quarter centennial celebration of Philadelphia as a city. Like, there's a lot of people that are going to be coming here, and I think once they get a peek and see what's been going on with a lot of the new stuff that we've been building, the prices will stabilize as well, those rental prices, because that's a huge part of what we do. We need to know what the rents are going to be. Any investor out there is going to need to know how much am I bringing in per month, and especially on the commercial buildings or those commercial mixed use, which is huge in Philly. That's been so uncertain. You can't even get a business in there for 6 months, and it's a great price at a great location, but no one needs it. There's no demand.
Yep. And I think that is what, and I'm saying it right now. Quote me on it. I'm saying it right now. We're going through kind of like a dip in the system right now. But with all the people that are going to come into all these apartment buildings everywhere, those are all people that need to go to restaurants. Those are all people that are going to want to go out and do different things in the city. And you're going to see it in about 2 to 3 years, this kind of super demand. It's going to basically fuel the next commercial kind of not revolution, but this like commercial demand in the city, where you're going to see Girard Avenue over here just get more built up, and a lot of these places, it's going to help develop the city. At the end of the day, though, going back to Trump with the interest rates, or speaking with Trump and the interest rates still are something that need to come down right now. If we can get them down 100 basis points, a lot of these deals make sense. And the only problem is
how do we do that?
Yeah, like how do we do that? And you look, I read an article in December. Our deficit went up by $200 billion.
So meaning we're just printing $200 billion.
Yeah, amongst more, you know, for all the other domestic spending.
Are we spending this on just goods for the most part from out of country?
So that's the deficit right there. We're spending more money
trying to bring
goods in than we're actually than what's going out. So there's a deficit.
And then also the production of what we're making, right? Like, I know there's a huge push on these tariffs. The purpose of those tariffs is to bring people from out of the country back in the country to start manufacturing and producing here. And that should increase or decrease, I guess, our spending and hopefully increase our income.
Yeah. And I think ultimately what we need to get, and in my opinion, what we really need to start doing is we are acting like the college kid that has a credit card that keeps spending. And then once we get to the point where we're hitting the credit limit, we're like, yeah, we can't pay. Can I get another credit extension? And they just keep raising our credit balance and our credit limit. And after a certain point, it's like the dollar is only backed by the economy of the United States. If we keep printing this shit over and over and it keeps going, of course, what happens to the dollar? It goes down in value.
It's worthless, yeah.
So it goes down in value, and then how do you – that means that correlates to interest rates inversely. The lower the price of the dollar or the value of the dollar, interest rates go up. So I think with Trump, with this whole Doge thing, whether or not it's going to be effective, hopefully it is, but it's like we don't have a tax problem. We have a fucking spending problem. We keep spending money crazy, giving countries money, and it's like at a certain point, we got to help ourselves. We got to kind of get things in line. And I think, I do think that the reason for the conversations I'm having, the reason for people coming out and saying, I'm kind of ready. Do you have any lots, things? Because we're looking for new construction development. I haven't heard about anybody want to do new construction development in 2 years, and now I'm getting calls about that.
Right.
I think it's more the certainty that they're seeing.
Yeah.
It's not as much the interest rate. We obviously want to get them down, but I think a lot of people have been hesitant because they just didn't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And now that you got a guy like Trump, pro-business.
Definitely a pro-business guy. If you know the name Trump, it's branded. It's on every building that you could find, in New York. It's like he knows exactly what entrepreneurs, business owners need, hence being one himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's for people like in the real estate space, investors, anyone in the real estate space for that matter, it's a good sign, I think, of things to come. Someone who understands us fighting for what we need right now.
Yeah.
So, and I want to take it back really quick to the commercial aspect. I think the cities or any major metropolitan cities need a really good commercial corridor or multiple corridors, right? Like you go to New York, you got so many little pockets. You go to Paris, you have so many little pockets. And I'm not comparing Philadelphia to either of those two incredible cities, but it's just a commonality in any really kind of highly valued area. And right now, Philadelphia, I think, has just been known as one of those middle of the pack kind of cities. It's not really a New York or a Boston, but it's, not like, I don't really know how to compare it, to be honest.
Yeah, we never get spoken about in
No.
national poll. It's kind of funny, like how we're the 5th or 6th largest city in the country, but yet we're never really mentioned much. Yeah.
So I feel like these next 3 years, with all the things coming we just mentioned, it's like our time to shine. It's our time to show the world, like, wait, Philly's got some good stuff happening there. We should be looking at this area. And we already see it trending in the Philadelphia Inquirer and the national news of being the top 5 hottest real estate markets. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact of what's to come down the line. People who see the big picture are like, hey, I should probably hop in here a little bit quicker before that happens. I think that's another reason you're seeing your database kind of getting a little more active too. Maybe that's not top of mind, but it's part of what's going on.
Yeah, it's a stable city. Philly, the one thing about Philly is the industry that backs it is medicine and education.
Eds and meds, baby.
Eds and meds, 2 very stable industries. You're not going to have this crazy trajectory of pricing going, like in Austin, Texas, that they saw their pricing going 50% higher, 60% higher.
Crazy.
And now with the turn back, they're 30, 40. We just have a slow increase in value. But we've spoken about it in the past. The biggest thing about Philly is it getting in its own way when it comes to like permitting and all that bullshit.
Yep.
That really adds the cost. And if they could, and then of course they messed with the 10-year tax abatement at the worst time.
Totally.
And again, we just need we just have to have our eyes focused on being pro-development. And again, speaking about Trump, and the positives that came out of his last presidency that really no one talks about is the whole QOZ, the qualified opportunity zones. Like, I can't tell you how many clients, how many deals we did. You speak to architects.
Yep.
Noam, Gabe, is that a lot in a qualified opportunity zone? Is that warehouse in a qualified opportunity zone? Kensington, all the development on American Avenue, that wouldn't exist without that. Or it might, but it would have taken years and years. That pumps so much money into our city, and so much development. And that's good policy in my eyes. That is good policy.
Yeah. Do you think we see that again? I know we still have QOZs, but the 10-year tax abatements and
that's that was
the incentives. Do they come back now?
I would hope that. I think to get the economy going, you might see some type of incentive, like for developers, where it's something like your first 10% of your profits aren't taxed or something like that, to get them building, to kind of bridge the gap between that the interest rate,
the cost to build,
the cost to build.
I mean, we haven't even touched on that. I mean, right now we have natural disasters happening left and right, Florida, and our prayers go out to everyone in LA, of course. But all of these resources are being allocated to those high priority cities. And right now, what that does is limit supply, increases the cost, right? Yep. So obviously we want to see them get built up fast, but we want to see some kind of incentives to help us cover that gap, because it's just becoming harder and harder and harder for builders in the city, developers in the city. Yep. So,
and that's, again, going back to Trump, his whole thing that he went on was eliminating the red tape, because we see it firsthand. The red tape,
it's everything.
I
don't even see any clear tape anymore. It's all red.
It's all red tape.
Every time a client asks me, should I try to go for this variance? I say, unless you are willing to not get approved, no, because it's a very good chance that it will not get approved. And if it doesn't, you're going to spend, how many months have you spent? What's like the worst story you've ever heard of someone going for a variance? Because right now I have a couple.
Oh, gosh. I mean, there's been so many, but I mean, these things could take 18 months. You have to go you got to go in front in Philadelphia. You have to go in front of the neighborhood association.
Yep.
You have to have the neighborhood approve. After that, well, there's a whole other process. You got to submit. You got to get the refusal. Then you the refusal prompts the neighborhood association meeting. The neighborhood might say, we want this, this, and that. It takes a couple months. You got to go back to the neighborhood association, finally get through that. Then you get your scheduled ZBA.
My brain's already hurting, and I'm sure a lot of people are. It's just absurd, and that's probably not even 75% of it, right? And then you got to build the project. And who knows what comes up in that process? A sewer pipe breaks, more costs there. Oh, guys didn't show up to work today, more costs there. It's freezing cold. We're going to hold this property all throughout February and January because we can't get anyone out to the site. It's legitimately too cold to lay cement right now. It won't settle. There's so many factors, and just to have a city right now, it feels like, who is just adding to those factors is not helping. So I'd really love to see us, like you said, limit the red tape, get those abatements back out there. Even if it's a 10% boost in profit for these guys, it just helps them actually make the acquisition with more confidence and certainty, which I think is an overarching theme of what I've also felt in this new 2025 market. Certainty and a little bit more willingness to take that chance, because if they don't, the alternative could be way worse. If they don't sell that building, prices could continue to keep decreasing, right? Whatever it may be. And I don't want to put any kind of, predictions out there in terms of pricing. From what I've seen, it's going to steadily increase, to your point. Yeah. But you just don't know. Let's start making some moves now, because we do have a feeling of what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's just, there's certain areas of Philadelphia that don't have enough investment. They should have 25-year tax abatement. North Philly, Southwest Philly.
North Philly should absolutely have a
25-year tax abatement.
They might need a 100-year abatement on that. Areas.
100 years, crazy. But, you're thinking about, people talk about how we're losing tax money and tax abatements. But, you have whole neighborhoods that came up because of the abatement. Great stat. The Philly was losing population up until the 2020 census. And in 1998, they passed the tax abatement law. And after that, the population started to grow in Philadelphia.
What year did they do that first study?
1998, the tax abatement. And I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah.
I'm
Taylor, can we get a double check on that too? Chat GPT.
But 1998, the 10-year tax abatement went into effect. We were losing population up until the 2000s census, but then after that, population started to grow, because that's like good public policy. And people, the tax abatement, we lose taxes. You're planting a garden. After the 10 years, those people are paying fair market value, and so you're getting people to move in. They're building the houses.
A lot of money, that fair market value.
Yeah, like think about Graduate Hospital would not exist.
Your average sale price right there right now is like $800,000 for no parking.
Yeah, for no parking.
And you're paying maybe $1,000 to maybe $1,500 a year, but it immediately, if you're paying $800,000, typically I always say it's about a percentage of that you're going to be paying in taxes, just above actually 1.12 or 0.012. So $800,000 homes, you're going from $1,500 to $8,000 at least, maybe $9,000, and that's every block. So your tax collections are going to rise eight times in certain neighborhoods. maybe 10 in Fishtown.
And then maybe we could actually get some schools here.
Absolutely. And that's another whole
That's
thing
a
that
whole
we
other
could dive into. And we're working on that, I guess. But I see more professional athletes giving back to the schools in our own city right now. And to go into the athlete stuff, we got some good stuff happening.
Yeah.
We got some really good stuff happening in the city.
Sixers.
I have a really interesting kind of inside story on that, actually.
Really?
I do. Apparently,
Again, this inside story.
I can't disclose my sources, but we have, we have a good relationship. I feel like with the owner of the Sixers, David Edelman, like just me and a couple connections that I know.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard from people around David, was that this was kind of the plan the whole time, just to refresh everyone's memory.
I think it was.
Yeah. The Sixers went for a downtown stadium, got approvals, and then they basically said, no, we're going to keep it in South Philly, and we're going to have Comcast basically build the whole thing now. And that's the nutshell. It's crazy. That's the nutshell kind of breakdown. We could definitely get into it. If anyone has any questions, like I could talk about this for days. But he was just kind of going for the approvals, getting a little bit of bargaining power. And we talked about
needed leverage.
Amen.
They got the approval, and it's like, oh, you want us to stay down South Philly?
What can you do for us?
What can you do for us? Because we got the approvals. We'll go over here.
Rolled out the red carpet. They threw flowers for him. And David's walking down, hey, I'm back. And I'm the savior now of South Philly. I'm keeping the city here. Yeah. It's a good public look for him. Obviously, Chinatown, it's a good news for them, I think. I mean, honestly, I thought there was pros and cons for Chinatown. So however you want to look at it. But I know as a whole, they weren't too happy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of positives, and I'm just really happy that one, I'm a South Philly guy. I love the stadiums in South Philly, but I'm just happy that the city is kind of waking up to just the fact we got that approved. I thought was a great step for us.
I agree, because that's going to prompt something else there. Something else definitely needs to go. Be developed or something in Market East.
That mall is desolate.
It's kind of sad.
Holiday.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. They try to like boost it up, and it's just the nature of malls now. People don't really. I mean, when was the last time you went to a mall and shopped? I mean, it's like only a couple times a year. It's like holidays. Yeah.
Once for. Yeah, maybe like the new season of shopping, you want to do everything, try it on in person, and then holidays. And then other than that, your sizes that year. You go online, the stores, the brands.
Exactly.
I think a really good idea for that location would be an amazing food hall. Have you seen?
Well, you got Reading Terminal there, though.
That's dated and old to me, and I don't.
But it's got the provenance.
Keep it. I think you keep it, and you just expand. Because if that could be, and beers, restaurants, almost just making that. Have you seen those food halls that are like overseas at all? There's a couple in like Rotterdam had one of the coolest food halls I've ever seen. The heights were about. I don't even know, 300 feet high. There was apartments all throughout and then at the base level, all around it was commercial. In the middle of the floor, you had their stands, right? Just like the Reading Terminal.
Yeah.
You could pop up some clips of that for our viewers. And then you had amazing residential apartments, studios, and one bedrooms for people that were just in Rotterdam for either studies, short-term residencies. Rotterdam's a fantastic city. And I think a fun thing about them, just to get off a little bit from Philadelphia, is Rotterdam was not the only city, at least in the Netherlands. It was one of the only cities that was completely ground level after World War II. The Luftwaffe, the German
the planes that
Air Force,
carpet bombed.
They crepited everything. Everything was ground zero except for one church, which we were able to go see over there. But the way that they had to restructure their infrastructure with dams, things like that, it's such an impressive city. And we could take a lot from them and what they did with that city, the functionality of it. Just the ideas of what kind of units you're putting in where.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful architecture over there too,
Yeah.
And I think it ties into what we do here as a very historic city.
Yeah, I wish we had like more of a push sometimes I think a lot of the development here is very budget.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really focus on aesthetics that much because the aesthetics cost a little bit more.
And why are we so focused on budget? Because there's already all these costs.
Exactly.
Yep.
And you get a lot of like just very just unamusing type structures.
Totally.
Where places like Chicago and some of these other cities where you have really cool buildings being built.
There's a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I would like to see something there, but I agree with you. I think the stadiums being in South Philly, great idea. Just looking at it pragmatically, everything is kind of in its own corner right by I-95, major artery, right by the train, Broad Street line. So you're getting this massive influx of people. They're on the exterior of the city, so it works perfectly. Yeah. But what they need to start doing right now, and I know there's plans, but it's like, let's not make it like Atlantic City where your only thing is sports. It's what else can you throw down there where you could be getting activity at other times of the year, or other things for the kids, maybe a big arcade, a Chuck E. Cheese, restaurants, Top Golf, you know what I mean? Or like some golf simulator thing, you know? It's like, let's get creative. Let's turn that into like a fucking destination.
Totally.
Because you got right across the street, FDR Park is getting redone. They're pumping a ton of money into that.
Ton of money.
It's a beautiful park.
Yeah.
You know, when I lived in South Philly, I used to go there all the time.
Yeah. And all the land
my son
have.
Yeah. They got rid of the golf course because, you know, it was just a natural, like, swampy area. So every time it rained, you couldn't play golf for, 3 days.
I wasn't a golfer at that time, but
I wish it was there. Like, imagine having like a sick golf course like right there in South Philly.
So much land there too.
Yeah,
I drive by it every day. My family's in Packer Park. You know, you were just saying your son there, right? You drive by it, and then obviously the Bellwether Project, which
that's on
massive health and life sciences, right? Like massive, building more into our eds and meds, and just building the foundation. I think of what's to come in the future in FDR Park. The stadiums and the Navy Yard, which no one has talked about, I think, in the last 25 years, is now being talked about more. And I have people just calling me looking for single-family one-offs in, like, near Oregon Avenue because they know it's just close to that, And eventually they're just kind of thinking that all the values are going to rise in that area. I know Packer Park will definitely see an increase in value. So if you're looking to buy in South Philadelphia, look into Packer
Park. Definitely. And it's so funny because I've always said it. I don't know the exact tax abatement that they have in the Navy Yard. I think it's 20 years because it's federal land. So they had basically all these old Navy buildings. Yeah. And what's the clothing company that's down there? Urban Outfitters. Yeah. Urban Outfitters is down there.
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor.
Yeah.
But so they took these old hangars and they fix them up, and I think they don't have to pay property taxes for 20 years or something like that.
That's what we need.
And you saw the Navy Yard just absolutely blow up. And you're like, here's a perfect control group of like what could be. You know what I mean?
It's almost like
it's crazy. It's like it's right in front of your face. There's a tax break.
Wave your wand. And just if you grant these, it's almost like waving the magic wand over a certain pocket of the city.
Yeah.
And we're lucky enough to be in one right now that was never looked at for years. And then 20 years ago, they said Fishtown gets a 10-year tax waive in QOZ zone, Kensington. And now look, you wave the magic wand, amazing things appear. We need to keep waving that wand. Why did we stop waving that wand?
It's because, I hate to say it, they vilified developers. We're the bad people. They're making money. They're the bad people.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's a love-hate type thing. They're the people that are building. They're the ones taking the risk. And people they won't think about that, the risk that's involved when they're leveraging their personal house possibly to develop something. If it doesn't go right, they're losing their house.
And not to get like too deep and psychological on this, but it comes down to beliefs. It's like, what kind of city do we believe we are? What's our identity as a city? Do we support those low-income neighborhoods and back them up and say, get out of here, developers, you're not taking our neighborhood away? Or are we
working in tandem?
Right. I think that's really the identity of Philly that I've seen in South Philly. I haven't seen that Brewery Town was a great example of a neighborhood that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Fishtown or Liberties. But, I think that's the identity we need to pursue. And if we take that identity on, the decisions will become easier. But I think we don't know who we are fully, maybe. And Sherelle is doing a great job, I think, of getting people on board with like, hey, we approving that development on market. That just kind of shows like, hey, we're not going to stick to what we've always done anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to switch things up. We've seen the results because at the end of the day, it's incredible. I'd meet these people all day, every day. I walk into listing appointments of $110,000 houses in Kensington where you see some really horrible things, some really bad living conditions, and you feel for these people. You don't want to just kick them out and see it. I think finding these solutions and working together with, like you said, holding hands in the process and maybe creating more safer government housing, which I know that maybe that's their first step. So we can put these people somewhere, not to sound super, objective, right? I totally feel for these people, but it's like, let's create this game plan together. And it's not you versus us. It's let's do this together. And I think once again, the stadium was a step in the right direction of everyone coming together. And, and it worked out for everyone in the end, honestly.
Yeah, it did. It still is crazy to me that they will ultimately knock down Wells Fargo State. The thing is like 20 years old.
Are they? I don't know if they were knocking it down.
I think they're knocking it down.
Here's my take: is
I don't know.
We bring female sports. I think we grow female sports in this area, and that might be another attraction.
Meh.
Women's basketball team, the WNBA is blown up this year. They did such good.
Caitlin Clark.
Yep, my dad loves her. He bets.
Yo, it's funny. My dad, he bets on Caitlin.
What is going on with all these dads?
That's hilarious. My dad's like watching Caitlin Clark over the summer. He's like, well, she's playing tonight. I'm like,
dude, it's scary how much they love it.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait. But honestly, though,
she's
not
nasty. She's nasty.
Not talking any smack on NBA basketball. There's some athletes there, but it hasn't been the same. Like the Michael Jordan era was the golden era.
Yeah.
We've lost a lot since then. Even Iverson, like legend. You know, we don't have anyone that's like, oh my God, I'm excited to watch that guy tonight. It's like, oh, the Cleveland's gonna play. You know,
I don't watch. The only time I watch NBA, like I get into NBA. Well, if the Sixers were better, I'd probably be watching them more. But they suck.
They suck. They're like below 500 right now.
Yeah,
they have a sick lineup.
And then I like playoff NBA because then they actually start playing like defense. Yep. You know what I mean? And it's actual basketball.
And that we're related to that because that's all we can play in basketball. We can't jump. We can't
exactly.
jump. So we're like, good D, man. Yeah, get low. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I think bringing women's sports, you know, kind of loop it back in. It's like I think that'll be more exciting for the city, and I think. You know, women's hockey, maybe, you know,
women's
hockey, women's.
Is there a league for what?
There is, but it's only in like Minnesota, Michigan, and Boston. I think there's only like 10 teams. So it's super small. And I think if we keep that stadium, it's going to be for venues, you know, comedy concerts, obviously music, you name it.
So you're saying they're not going to demolish it?
I don't think so.
But they'll build a brand new stadium for the Sixers.
Exactly, and actually the Flyers too. I think are going to go with them because yeah, keep the same kind of recipe.
Interesting.
That's my take though. I think women's sports become big in Philadelphia, and we become maybe a pioneer for this, you know, Northeast, kind of the bottom part of the Northeast to kind of grow the games, both games, basketball.
Now, is that you saying that, or have you read anything about that?
That's completely me. That's completely me. I think there's a niche for it, especially in Philadelphia. We're a huge sports city, and we have so many females that want to get into sports. My girlfriend included, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's watching the Bills game versus KC, and she's cursing, you know, like she's getting into that.
Yeah.
Imagine if she kind of could root for like her own sex. I think it would be important, and that's more maybe of a off the rails kind of prediction. I think it's a need here.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, I think it's a need. But I mean, we kind of touched on Trump. Kind of talked on lowering interest rates by lowering inflation, which is simply by printing less money. And we talked about kind of what's to come for the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack in everything, but I think we did a pretty good job of overviewing it. Have you seen anything in particular you're excited about, Nick?
I think just like the positivity is good to see. Yeah. You know, like just the you know, we're deal junkies, man. So it feels good that people are like ready to get out there and start doing things. Yeah. You know what I mean? Keeps me busy, you know, keeps me positive. Mm-hmm. And I think 2025 is going to be it's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year, man. Better than 2024.
I couldn't agree more. And it's all about just making sure we just get those deals done at this point because they're going to be there.
They're going to be there, and who's better to get them done?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No competition. Yeah. All right, bro. Hey, thank you guys for watching another episode of Broker's Blueprint. I'm Martino Picariello.
Nick Giganti.
Join us again next time.